Well, I'm live here from sunny San Diego and the home office of Vedic Art and Science, Inc. And we're
I'm live.
Whoops, here it comes. There you go. All right, so going to be talking about the week ahead. And I took off last week because I had some fun stuff to do and was not sure I could be near an internet connection, and I was flying. Oh, that's what it was. I was on the airplane. So we're going to get rolling here, and just got finished with a great weekend course on the Swiss Army Knife 2. And I'm thinking many of you who will show up here were on that course. So we had two really powerful courses where I break down the sort of most important strategies and tools to help you, get in there and read charts with a lot of skill. And, that was really cool. A lot of work, but people learned a lot, and it was fun to do. So things are moving forward now in general in the world because we have Mars moving forward. Mars just started, he was stationary direct last week, and he's pretty much moving forward now. He's not, when planets are stationary, they are pretty much stopped in the sky. Mars is still sort of stopped. He's not moving forward very fast, but he's still moving forward. He's only moving forward, actually. He's still pretty much stationary. He's moving forward about 5 seconds of arc per day. So Mars is still pretty much stationary. And that means that we're really concentrating a lot of Mars energy right now. Of course, he's also very close to K2, the south node. And this concentrated Mars energy is, can show where we have some kind of pent up, built up frustration, perhaps. As Mars was going backward, it really, held us back a little bit, at least from doing some things externally in the world. We had someone there, Jay Suna. You're welcome for the amazing class. I think this is Lynette or John Sunara, one of the two. It was great to have my students there. It was about 35 students this weekend, and it was about 65 the first time. So yes, and it's good to acknowledge those things, because one of the things that's good to do with that Mars K2 energy that was really, seems like it's stuck, but it's actually really concentrated internally, is to really concentrate on something powerful. That's been a real theme of the last couple months since Mars started to slow down, then went retrograde, then is still now stationary direct. One of the things to do when you have a planet that's stationed like that, because it can be stationed for a couple months, it could be hanging out at the same degree. Mars has been at about 4 degrees and 50 minutes of Capricorn, for a couple weeks, and he'll be there. Or no, he's been there for. Let me just look at it here. I'll share the screen here. Wait a second. But Mars has been at that point in Capricorn. You see, this is today, September 3rd. Mars is 4 degrees 50 seconds, and if we go back last week, he was 4 degrees 29 seconds the same time last week, 4 degrees 29 seconds. It's like exactly the same. 2 weeks before that, August 20th, he was 4 degrees 48 seconds. So as you can see, it's like stops in the sky. This is called he's still retrograde. Like at that time, on August 20th, we were saying Mars is retrograde, but it was really kind of stopping. It was stopped in the sky. So you see, even a week before, August 13th, he was 546. Then a week later, he's 448. So he moved about 1 degree from August 13th to August 20th. Then from August 20th to August 27th, from August 20th to August 27th, he only moved and in fact, he stopped going retrograde, and he moved like, what is that? 19 seconds, not 19 degrees, 19 seconds. He's still at 4 degrees. He was 448 on August 20th, then 429 on August 27th, stationary direct. Then today, and then last week, then today, he's 450 on September 3rd. Next week, he'll be 549. So he moves about 1 degree by next week. But you could see it's been hanging around 4 or 5 degrees for about a month and a half. That's what a stationary motion is. First, it starts to go stationary while he's still retrograde. So it's retrograde starting to slow down. Then it kind of stops in the sky. For a couple days, it doesn't move at all. Then it starts to slowly move forward again. Now, Saturn is also in that position. Saturn has been, quote, retrograde, but if we go back, look, Saturn is 852. If we go back, he was at 9 degrees on August 6th. On August 6th, 9 degrees. That was a month ago, 909. August 6th, August 13th, he's 852. August 20th, he's 839. August 27th, he's 830. Today, it's 826. It's virtually moving. It's not moving at all. It's just stopped. This is Saturn because Saturn moves so slow. So this is what happens when planets slow down and they're about to change direction, either stationary direct or stationary retrograde. It's stationary retrograde when it's moving forward and about to go retrograde. It's called stationary direct when it's been moving retrograde and it's about to go forward. So you got to pay close attention because people say, oh, it's still retrograde. Saturn has been stationary, pretty much stationary for a while. As soon as it stops going backwards, it's called stationary direct, which Saturn this week goes stationary direct. It's not really direct, it's stationary direct. So today is September 3rd. So we go forward, we have 4th. Okay, it's tomorrow. Oops, no, that's October, sorry. Day, okay. So tomorrow, 8:25. Look, you see it stops 8:25. So look, today it's 8:26 on September 3rd. September 4th, Mars is 8:25. September 4th, it's also 8:25. September 6th, now it's called stationary direct. So you see, but it's still at 8:25. Look how many days it's at 8:25. Then it goes 8:26. But again, remember, 8:26, 1 second of celestial arc is nothing. It's 1 degree is almost nothing. 8 to 9 is almost nothing. What to make of 8:25 for 4 days and then 8:26? So you'll see this, this is day after day. You see Saturn just stuck at 8:20, 8:29, 8:30, 8:30, 40. So then he starts to move, but then even when he's moving, by September 27th, which is 24 days, Saturn is still 8:47, 8:49 the next day. So then he moves 2 seconds of arc. So Saturn can be stopped at this degree of about 8 or 9 degrees for months. Let's go back. So, right, this was August 29th. Go back, right. July 30th, he was 9:30. So let's go forward and see how long it takes him to move from 9:30. Look, okay, so it's like 2 months or so he hangs out in that place. So this is what happens when planets go stationary. And that's what's going on this week. We have Mars and Saturn both stationary direct for all intents and purposes, okay? They're both stationary direct. And it's a lot of energy that's concentrated just in general, but they're moving forward. So that's you want to pay attention to the motion. They're not stationary retrograde. That it's not that they've been moving forward and they're about to go backwards. They're stationary direct. They've been retrograde and they're both kind of stopped, about to move forward. So those qualities of Saturn and Mars are going to be, we feel like we're ready to start moving forward with them again and start, using them more creatively in our life. And that when they're retrograde like that, it's always a time, again, like to introspect and to go within, especially in Vedic astrology. Retrograde, it's considered to have what's called chestabala, or emotional strength. And the planet is said to be, it's one of these things that's said to be, quote, stronger when it's retrograde. It's one of those ambiguous terms that doesn't really say anything. You have to interpret it. What you can know is that the retrograde planet is considered stronger in the sense that it becomes an introspective force. And the power of introspection is really valued more in Eastern cultures. So I think this is one of the reasons why, and it's one of the things that Western astrologers or Western astrology students ask a lot about: why is retrograde bad in Western astrology and good in Vedic astrology? Now, that's a simplistic way to look at it. And of course, my students know I don't really like those kind of judgments, but it captures a certain essence because, yes, retrograde is considered to be quite malefic in Western astrology because of what it represents. It represents things not moving forward in the world, not moving forward externally. That's the, I guess you would say, problem with the retrograde planet. And because our life in the West is very much about external results, that's considered to be difficult. That's considered to be a problem. Okay. In Vedic astrology, that's not really considered to be a problem. It's not really considered to be an issue, because when things mess up externally, it creates a great opportunity for internal growth and transformation. And this isn't just feel-good New Age philosophy. This is what Eastern dynamics and energetics are all about. In the Eastern approach to the world, or in the Eastern approach to life and the universe, this external world is an illusion. It's Maya. We get trapped in it. We get stuck in it. Our soul is stuck in the games of the world. First, we're stuck in the illusion that we're this body and this mind and this karma and this history. That's the first illusion, and it's the deepest. But then what keeps reinforcing the illusion is that we're participating in things in the world that are actually real and ultimate. And I use the two together because they're certainly real, but they're not ultimate. They're not ultimate truth. Something can be real, but not true in the highest sense. And again, these are what terms like dharma actually mean, right? It actually means the truth of what things really are, the actual truth. And the actual truth is all these things in the world and all these things we do are not ultimate. It doesn't mean they're not real, but they're not the ultimate reality. Your dreams are real. They're real. They really happen. But when you're in the dream, it's not an ultimate state of reality. It's one state of reality. So what's the ultimate state? And this world that we're living in and this illusion that we're all under we have this sort of collective illusion and then an individual illusion. It's called Maya. And things that wake us up from the illusion are actually considered beneficial in the Eastern approach to life. And again, there's so often I study, like I'll go to yoga ashrams to teach, or I teach people that understand these principles. And then they start doing astrology and they forget them all. They seem to forget it or something. This is the foundation. This is why when you look at anything, you look at it through that lens. This is why when I teach astrology, it's always through that lens. It's like, yes, people get involved in people dying and all that, but what's the point of all of it? Because that's not the ultimate point. Because everything's going to die. We're all going to die. Everything's going to do this thing, and we're all somewhat, trapped in some version of the illusion. But what's the point of it all? So the retrograde planet is a great introspective force because it interrupts that. It interrupts the illusion. And so in the Eastern sense, it's considered to be very powerful strength. Even when you look in the sky, actually. And again, because those things aren't really valued in the West so much. We just don't learn in the West. Let's just be honest. We don't learn that introspection and meditation and spirituality and contact with the divine directly is a valued experience, that this world is illusion. No, even our spirituality has to do with worship of some god, of religion, Christianity, or some version of spirituality is actually that. Faith in something, some symbolic reference of spirituality, symbolic reference like a religion or a religious figure. There's nothing wrong with that. You have that in the East as well, but that's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal in Eastern religion is not to worship the deity. It's to contact your spiritual essence directly through meditation, through experience. It's experiential. And things that can interrupt the pattern of illusion that we're trapped under has a lot of value, right? Astrologically and whatnot. And you see this distinction in the text of astrology as well. This is why, at least in my case, why the texts of Parashara especially is supreme. It's not necessarily just because it is very scientific and systematic, which it is, and it has systematic approaches that aren't in any other text. I'm not going to go into that here because it's a bit off topic, but it's the framing of all of the astrological concepts within the structure of Sanatana Dharma and this eternal truth. Parashara is unerring in all of that. And yes, he talks about our life in the world and whatnot, but you can tell that, especially when you start to examine the reasons behind, when he gives rules about things and you start to examine and ponder what those rules mean in a larger context, it all is to reinforce these things I'm talking about. The good and the bad things and the way he phrases things and the way things are explained are not this polarized version of life where astrology is to help us get good things and fulfill our desires and be happy. No, it's to help us awaken from our illusion. Whereas a lot of the other astrological texts, they were written by astrologers of their time. They were great in their own right, but they were mainly about how to help people overcome a lot of these difficulties and remedies for people to avoid problems in their life rather than awaken full consciousness. Hang on one second. Okay, so when we look at anything astrologically, we should look at that and understand that when we see things like retrograde or whatever it is, to see it through that lens of, how is this a divine power and potential? Because that's what all the planets are. And however they move and whatever they do, it's never to harm us or hurt us or punish us. These are all weird Western ideas. Again, because in the East, spirituality, there is no, in fact, again, it's hard for people to understand this, but there is no wrathful God punishing you. There's wrathful gods for sure, wrathful deities, Kali, Shiva, especially Kali. is wrathful, but they're not wrathful against you. They're wrathful against darkness and ignorance. There is no wrathful God to punish you in the East. No, all the deities are compassionate on every level. They're compassionate for you and your ignorance, not to punish you for your ignorance. Again, think of even what happens with children and parents. Good parents don't punish children because they're ignorant. They teach them. Bad parents become impatient with a child's ignorance and punish them. Now, of course, children need to be punished on some level, but it always has to be commensurate with their level of understanding. And in Eastern sense, and it's what we also see with great Satgurus and beings that embody this, any of us who've had the privilege to be around a great Mahatma or a great soul, understand that they have infinite compassion for our childishness and ignorance. Doesn't matter what we do, they love us, and they, just like we love our children who screw up, or our pets who crap all over the floor because they are mad at us or something like that. We usually have compassion. So why doesn't the Western God have compassion? Well, actually he does, but Western spirituality became religion and all kinds of twisted things happened, and so the spirituality of the West is kind of mangled up with a lot of dark age, literally dark ages theories, because the church is what held culture together during the dark ages, without getting into all of that. But the root of Western spirituality also is very pure, right? So the beauty of the Indian thinking is that where God is all compassionate. I'm saying this because the planets are nothing more but the products of that spirit. And there, again, it says right in the beginning of Brihad Parashara Horasastra that Lord Vishnu has appeared as the nine, you spring forth from that. So anything we look at, difficult planets, difficult things, K2 Mars, it's intense. But that intensity is also a great opportunity. If you can find that it makes you get in there and destroy your darkness, destroy the darkness in your mind, because it comes up. How are you going to destroy it if it doesn't come up? You see the story of Lord Shiva drinking the poison after they churn the milk ocean. First thing that happened when you churn the mind, all the poison comes up. All of the darkness and poison in your mind comes up. This is what happens when you start to become self-aware and start to wake up from the illusion. First thing you have to look at is all of your problems and frustrations, because that's the source of it all, your ignorance. And so when that happens, it especially happens when these difficult planetary forces, get at us. And then there's been quite a bit of it, especially with K2 Mars and Capricorn. The last few months, it's been intense, right? We've seen a lot of darkness and stuff playing out. We've had these eclipses and all, and it's hitting all of us somewhere, because we all have the signs of Cancer and Capricorn where the eclipses are somewhere in our chart. It's bringing up something for everybody, in particular, if they're your ascendants or you have planets there, whatever, it's churning stuff up. That's what the churning of the milk ocean story is about. Not just in general, but all the time, there's a churning going on in our consciousness and mind. It's about the churning in your mind that produces the poison. And this is why the first quality of worship in the Indian sense is to Shiva first, because we need to drink that poison. Or Kali, we need to destroy those demons. It's not destroying you, it's destroying your demons and your darkness. And so we fall back on those energies when we need them. And that's a lot where these fierce qualities come from. Saturn and Mars in particular, those tamasic energies, give us the willingness and the courage and the commitment and the ability, capacity to face those things and to not give up because it's difficult, and to not avoid it because it might be unpleasant. Mars gives us that courage to fight in the moment, and Saturn gives us the determination to keep fighting until we're finished, to be thorough, to keep at it, so that we persevere and so that we prevail over our darkness. And so these are big themes right now that are getting shifted. this week with Mars and Saturn changing direction. Now, there's a big shifting happening. And with the nakshatras, you know, we've had Saturn stationed right on the galactic core, right where the plane of the galaxy is, and the core of the galaxy is the galactic core, which is really a great source of energy to try to uproot a lot of that darkness and stress and struggle and pain. The nakshatra of Mula literally means root, and it's about uprooting and pulling out by the roots and planting new seeds of truth. Wherever you have Saturn, or I'm sorry, wherever you have this, the sign of Sagittarius, you'll feel that uprooting, whatever house that's in, from your ascendant. And of course, this is the correct application of Vedic astrology and the zodiacs, the sidereal zodiac, where the nakshatras and rashis are in alignment. So again, at every fire sign, there's an end of the last cycle and a beginning of the new one. The end of the previous cycle is the end of that water sign, and then the beginning of the fire cycle. So there's this transition point called the Gandanta between like Scorpio and Sagittarius, where you have the Jeshta nakshatra and the Mula nakshatra. So this point is very important. And again, this is an astronomical truth. When you look at the sky astronomically, these constellations of Scorpio, Sagittarius, that section of the sky has been referred to in almost every culture. It's a huge part of the Mayan story of creation as well. And we even know that this section of the sky is where there's a lot of potential danger because of all of the radiation emanating from the center of the galaxy. What's called the sun has this what's called heliosphere, which basically extends beyond the sun's body itself, and it extends all the way to the end of the solar system and protects all the planets and all the entire solar system from the radiation emanating from the galactic core. So this is that section of the sky. It's the first section of Sagittarius, where we uproot the darkness of Scorpio and then align with a higher purpose, purely Sagittarian energy, right? And so the Saturn has been going back and forth in Mula and Jeshta for the last year and a half. And now it's going to start moving forward, and it's going to move into other nakshatras and stay in them. But this has been a huge theme for the last year and a half, as Saturn has was in Jeshta, then goes into Mula, then poked its head in Purvashada, I believe, and then went back into Mula, retrograde back into Jeshta. It might have stayed in Mula. I think it did. Then went back into Jeshta. So it's been back and forth in these early degrees of Sagittarius and Scorpio for about a year and a half, 2 years actually. So that's what Saturn does. He covers these sections of the zodiac very thoroughly. So again, a lot of this is now, even like of the last year and a half or 2 years, with Saturn now starting to move forward this week. It's almost like a cycle of moving forward past a lot of the darkness of the recent couple years is about to become big. So there's a lot of potential awakening this week. And look at the chart again. And so the other thing that just happened this week is Venus went into Libra. And again, as you can see, we're looking at Saturn and Mars over here, which I was talking about. Then Venus goes into Libra. Again, that's another big shift. So this week, the big predominant factors have to do with these shifts. A couple weeks ago, the weekly forecast had more to do with the moon traveling through a certain section of the sky. So things are different. And the big shifts this week have to do with these two planets moving direct and Venus going into Libra, where it's going to be for most of the year. If we go, Venus is going to go retrograde. So we go here. So Venus, yeah, so it goes until like January 1st or so. Yeah, Venus is now going to be in Libra from now until January. So your relationships will get shaken up a bit. You'll get more clear about how they're working, what you want from them, things like that. As Venus goes into Libra, we start to really assess and evaluate the quality of nurture, of not necessarily nurturing, which is the moon, but it's respect is the big word with Venus. We just saw the passing of the queen of RESPECT, Aretha Franklin, recently passed. Beautiful homage to her. And in fact, even we saw here in the US some very prominent funerals and celebrations of icons of the past, as Senator John McCain over the weekend, and then a couple days earlier of Aretha Franklin. And a theme where we're realizing such a lack of respect that's settled into our public discourse, our public life. In the US, for sure, there was like referendums on getting back to civility and respect. And these things happened when Venus was right at the end of her debilitation. So those things happened. Venus, I think it was Thursday or Friday. I think it was Friday was Aretha Franklin's funeral. You see, on that day, Venus was 29 Virgo. So it had passed its deepest debilitation point, gone up to it, and then it had passed it on Friday. It was moving toward Libra. And then on Saturday, Venus then went. Venus then went. Sorry, a second here. Yeah, so this was Saturday. Venus was again at the very last degrees, and Venus actually went into Libra on Saturday, which in the US was the funeral of John McCain. So I look at these things, and notice, because I think in general in the world, certainly as I notice in my country, in the US, Venus going into Libra is a time of reestablishing respect for each other. Again, one of the things that happen when you get these harsh, coarse energies like this K2 Mars and these eclipses that have been dominant, even Saturn in Mula, Nakshatra, back and forth between Mula and Jeshta, Scorpio and Sagittarius for the last couple years, is there's a triggering of our fears and our imagined problems and pain. It's hard to stay connected to things that seem gratuitous, like respect. It seems gratuitous, but over time it's not gratuitous. There's a reason that we have things like manners and courtesy and decorum and standards of communication and operation. I know with myself, I've seen in the last few days, I've had some surprising interactions with people, especially like through emails and stuff, where it happens, but sometimes it piles up, where people just on a very basic level, little thing could happen, because, I have a lot of people that get my courses or whatnot, and something doesn't go right, and people come at me with all kinds of drama, anger and accusation. And, it's just like, wow, okay, no thanks. So it happens in these moments. Maybe you're seeing this because things start to shift. And again, especially the last few days, as Mars and Saturn start to change direction and they station, and Venus was at those last degrees of debilitation. And so things like civility and manners and also tolerance for people's bad behavior, like on my part or on other people's part, is at a low. Then you start to notice things changing. So I definitely noticed that over the last few days, the end of last week, even until now, particularly over the week, at the end of the week and over the weekend, there were some strange interactions with people. Many I don't even know. A lot of people get get my courses or whatnot, and I don't know them. It's just the phenomena of the world these days. You wind up, quote, doing business with people all over the place that you've never met. They think they know me because they see me on videos and they're like, oh, Sam, da-da. And they feel justified when something goes wrong to just kind of, I don't know, something goes wrong and they want to say, well, you're so blah, blah, blah. And like, I don't know, because, all right, I can hear it and I can understand it, but it's funny how, and again, especially through email, and this is a big thing for us to look at right now. Mercury also just changed signs, which I'm going to talk about, but we have this sort of pseudo reality online where things that people would never say to someone's face, they wind up firing off in an email, especially if they've spent $5 on something or whatever it is. Like I care about refunding someone's money or whatever, like it's so important to me. But again, just in general, and we all kind of do it. We feel like, well, if I've spent some money on something, then I can be as obnoxious as possible, even though I would never say that to someone's face, right? But we show up online, on chat, on even something like a YouTube chat or something, and we say things we would never say in person. We just show up, and especially because now we can hide behind some anonymous avatar, Joe Blow something can just show up. Nobody knows who it is. It just sort of burn somebody and act like a moron and then disappear and nobody knows who it is. Again, I'm not trying to complain. I expect and deserve no sympathy for any of it. It's not that kind of thing. I'm referring, though, to a state of the world that we live in now, where we have these interactions with each other, and we have to be careful because the coarseness just pervades everything these days. So much of unreal interactions, again, where we get our aggressions out on people over the internet who we don't know. We don't have any, there's like no price to pay for it often, particularly in the lowest sense when we're hiding behind some name or something. But even on a smaller level, even if we do have a bit of a rapport with someone or we kind of interact with them a little bit and we can kind of dump something onto them, there's really not much price to pay. Okay, well, so this person didn't like it, so what? And we don't check ourselves. And again, in person, we would never say that. We'd never act like that, right? And so it's a time for us all to sort of check ourselves. The other energy that changed is Mercury moved into Leo. Again, a lot of changes this week. Mercury had been clunking around back and forth for seemingly forever, retrograde and forward, and getting eclipsed and all of that with Rahu in Cancer. So Mercury had been in Cancer for a couple months. It wasn't just in Cancer going forward and backwards. It was joined Rahu, which means it was also getting eclipsed. All these eclipses were happening where Mercury was right there, and Mercury was getting aspected by that honking badass Mars in Capricorn. So again, there was a lot of sort of miscommunication, confusing communications back and forth for a while. Mercury has now gone into Leo. Mercury's, he'll start moving really fast now. You can see When after Mercury goes retrograde and he goes behind the sun, he moves really fast. I showed this to my students yesterday in the Swiss Army knife course, where we looked at charts. You see, so we saw how slow Saturn and Mars were just moving, barely a degree. Look at Mercury. So this is Mercury today, 1 degree, 47 seconds. Yesterday, he was 0.9. Mercury had just gone into Leo, and then he goes 1.5 degrees in one day. This is how fast Mercury moves when he comes out of retrograde. So let's see tomorrow. Almost 2 degrees tomorrow, 3:29. Let's look at the next day. 5:14, right? More than 2 degrees, or no, almost 2 degrees. 5:14, then 7:01, almost 2 degrees. Again, as he gets closer to going behind the sun, he'll start covering almost 2 degrees every day. Which is where he's at here, 10:42, then 12:35 again. So when Mercury really gets going, he travels close to 2 degrees a day. And so he's about at that point right now in Leo, where he's moving fast, joined the sun. So there's a lot of power and precision with a fast Mercury, especially in Leo, which is ruled by the sun, joined his ruler. So you want to be discriminate. You want to have discrimination. You want to be aware of the tendency, and I'm going to say particularly with technology, to just kind of crap on people a little bit, or not take the care that you would with someone in person, let's say. And, be responsible for that. And notice the different dynamic, because again, this is a whole illusion that we're living in this world, and again, this is a big part of what's happening. These big shifts this week, 2 planets changing direction that have been retrograde, or they're still stationed, but they're changing and moving forward. Still stationary, but starting to move forward. Then Venus and Mercury changing, Venus coming out of debilitation into its own sign for the rest of the year. Venus in Libra from now until January. That's like 3 months. And Mercury finally out of Cancer, where he's been back and forth, joined Rahu, eclipsed, and moving fast in Leo, heading toward his exaltation sign as well. So that's a lot of, those are a lot of shifts this week. And in the midst of that, the moon is going to be going through Gemini, Cancer, and into Leo. We'll have a new moon this week as well. And I'll check in later in the week with another update, probably on the upcoming new moon. And we'll see here. All right, so I'm glad people enjoyed the explanations, just wanting to check in and set you up for some big changes that just happened. Again, it's a pivotal week. It's a real transitional week. We've been kind of feeling like we're sort of stuck in a similar kind of energy, because it's kind of the way it has been. Not a whole lot of things changing. We had, we had that Mars K2 hanging out there forever, Saturn retrograde at the same degree forever, Mercury and Cancer back and forth forever. In these eclipses, it's just kind of like, sometimes it just grinds along for a couple months, a very similar kind of energy. And then all of a sudden, things at least stop going retrograde. They station, they're about to shift. We have a couple big shifts. Mercury's no longer in Cancer, joined Rahu. It's now joined the sun. Venus is no longer in Virgo and its debilitated sign. And it's frankly not a real treat when it's in Leo either, in some ways. It's not a very friendly sign for Venus. Now it goes into Libra. And again, we start to notice these things. We notice how much respect is coming back. We notice how we're feeling disrespected. And again, so this combination can pile up as Venus ended that debilitation point in Virgo and started to cross over into Libra. we actually become more sensitive to if we're being disrespected. And then the fact that Mars and Saturn are still kind of stuck, we might lash out. Again, that's the possibility as well. So understanding the astrology really alerts us to the higher possibilities and the better angels of our nature and the creative choice, the creative option, not just the sort of triggered response, you're not respecting me. All right, well, some kind of cranky thing that we just kind of fire off without hardly any consequences. Again, we wouldn't do that face to face probably. I mean, I receive emails, and I'm sure we all do, where like, God, what is this? Like, you'd never say this to my face. It's just okay, things happen, whatever, but it's shocking that we have learned to behave this way. We're conditioned, particularly with technology, to be insulated. So there's a karmic price to pay for all this. It's all karma. It comes back to us in one way, whether we think there are no consequences or not. There are consequences for everything. So we'll leave it at that. And for those interested, I'm also, today, it was a very good day to start moving forward with a lot of things. For those of you who are on my email list and are interested in things like, certification and whatnot, I'll put a link here, started my enrollment for my certification course this year. Almost forgot to mention it. So I just put the link in there, and you can go there. Again, whether you want to get certified or not, hours of free classes, literally like 10, 12 hours of free classes that really break down how astrology works, why everyone is really in many ways supposed to learn it and know it and understand it, right? Because again, this is what the ancients, this is how they understand, or how we can understand the universe. The earliest text in Vedic astrology and all of the Brahmins of the past, the educated people, they all learned a little bit of this. They weren't all astrologers, but they all learned some facet of Jyotish and the beginning qualities, at least, of how the universe is ordered. And I'm talking about the certain caste of people, the Brahmin caste. They had the different caste, the educated class of people. This is what they were educated in, right? They learned, again, they weren't all trained to be astrologers, but they at least learned the concepts of Jyotish and of Sanatana Dharma and the same energetics of yoga and Ayurveda and whatnot. This was like the education, and that's what astrology is supposed to be in the highest sense. And that's what Vedic astrology is. And so I'm not doing readings at the moment, and I'm not going to be doing them for quite a while. So those who are interested in getting readings will have to wait. I only do readings occasionally. So the person, Ayush Tiwari, yes, I know who you are, and your 1,000 emails, you're in some ways kind of a good example on another level of acting the way you would never act if it wasn't a computer. Sorry to say, but I have to say it. You send me 15 messages when I say, I'm not doing readings at the moment. And then you bombard me, when? And then you show up here and say, when? I've already told you, my assistant told you, we've told you, I'm not doing readings at the moment. You would never go up to another person on the street, and after they answered you, just keep saying to them over and over again, when can I get a reading? When? It's rude. As much as you want to say that you love me so much and you're so devoted, okay, then honor my simple request and stop pestering me about it. Okay? I have to laugh because I love you, man, but geez, okay? I'm not doing readings at the moment. So there you go. My main focus is as a teacher, as people know. I have a lot of students who do great readings, but I'm mainly interested in teaching. I do consultation sometime as well. But again, right now, it's a great time, a very auspicious time. And I'm also sharing that with people because it is an auspicious time right now to do things. And that's why I initiated the certification course for this time and this, this enrollment period. I just started it this morning, right before we came online. So anyway, folks, have a good one. And I do appreciate, Mr. Tawari, that you're interested. Really, I'm honored by that. But again, you just have to realize that look at the way we're communicating and how we act sometime, okay? So have a good one, folks.